Welcome to Shovick Sports Shit Podcast. We're just two brothers who just talk sports and give our opinions on today's topics. This is for entertainment purposes only, and these are strictly our opinions and views. So sit back for the next hour and enjoy our sports takes. All right, we have a special episode for Super Bowl week. Chiefs-Eagles. Chiefs going for their three-peat. Eagles trying to get over the hump just a couple years ago. We had a really good Super Bowl game between the Chiefs and Eagles. Can they do it this time? And joining us with a special guest, Arrowhead Chief Podcast. Find him on Instagram. And I'm assuming, and we'll have him tell you guys where to find the podcast as well at the end of the show. Cris, go ahead and give us a little background of yourself. Thank you again for joining us.
Thank you guys for having me on. My name's Cris. I'm originally from Kansas City, Missouri, but I live in Las Vegas right now. But I actually have two podcasts. My Chiefs podcast, Arrowhead Chief Podcast, I do every Tuesday, relatively around 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, where we talk everything Chiefs. Me and my co-host Mark. Shout out to Mark and Ash and Ty and Clarence. Those are my other co-hosts that come on sometimes. But I also have another podcast that I do with my partner out here, my boy Maul, with Cris and Maul podcast, and we talk all sports, basketball, football, baseball. We talk everything. So that's my other podcast I do. I've been doing my Chiefs podcast for about 3-4 seasons now. I started off just recording in front of a camera and just talking Chiefs. And then as time went on, I've evolved, and now I do a live show every Tuesday. And same thing with my Cris and Maul podcast. Been doing that for a year now. And me and him, we met at work. He's a Raiders fan. I'm a Chiefs fan. And pretty much our podcast developed off, I would, go to wherever he's working at, and we would just pretty much talk trash to each other. And that's how that podcast developed, and we had good chemistry. So we just was like, let's go ahead and start a podcast, because I wanted to talk other things than just, talk about Chiefs. So I just started that one. So, yeah.
Yeah, again, we've always been, and we kind of do the same. We'll talk any sports. We typically stick. I'm the Broncos fan here.
Okay.
My brother Austin over here is the Chiefs fan. So new territory, obviously, for me, talking Chiefs, trying to be somewhat non-biased and just realizing, what's in front of us right now and the run that they've been on,
Right.
Not only in the AFC West, but just in football in general.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, having a chance to three-peat, I mean, that's nuts. All the other teams who had that chance didn't even make it past the AFC Championship game. So for them to kind of have the run that they're on right now, while a Broncos fan, yes, but you still got to understand that it's history too.
Yeah.
And I don't know if we're ever going to get a chance to see something like this.
No.
Because what's not to say they do win this weekend, next year, maybe a fourth, going. So now the history just keeps getting rewrote. Right. So, we talk everything too. Football mode right now. We'll hit NFL off season, and then we'll have a little baseball episode before spring training games get going too. So let's kind of dive into it. Three-peat, man. So what comes to your mind as a Chiefs fan and someone who's kind of covered the Chiefs and talks Chiefs? What comes to your mind when you hear that your team has a chance to three-peat?
I'm sure Austin can attest to this. Never would have thought the day that we'd be talking about something like this. I mean, with all the playoff heartache and the bad teams that we put together, from the quarterbacks that we've been through, from, Tyler Thigpen, Damian Heward, Elvis Gorbach, Tyler Palco, like the list goes on and on. Trent Green,
we went through extended, Brody Croyle time. Like, people don't even remember he was in the league, but he was for us. So I'm like, that's spot on. Like, we've been through some tough times.
Yeah, we were always had some type of glimmer of hope, but it was just like it always got shot down in the playoffs and it was always the Colts. It was always the Colts. It was always the Colts that was shattering our dreams. It took me a long time to go over the Andrew Luck game, coming back 30 points. It was just like, man.
Was that the game where we forced that fumble at the goal line and it went right back to him and he took it in for a touchdown?
Yeah,
that's what
I think that's kind of how you realize that your luck was probably not quite there yet. No, I think back the first time the Chiefs thought they were maybe going to do that rebuild, you get Todd Haley And then you bring in Matt Castle, maybe thinking the tides were going to change, and that absolutely failed. Yeah, I mean,
well, see, and that's originally where I realized our karma was bad, right? Like Matt Castle was only a thing because the Chiefs hurt Tom Brady, and so like we kind of got our own karma on that one. Like, oh, you hurt Tom, Castle's going to do good enough, you're going to overpay him and get your hopes up. So that's kind of when you realize like just the football gods were not on our side at that moment.
And not only that, it was the fact that, we're getting Scott Pioli. He's a Patriots guy. Patriots play up in here. We about to win multiple Super Bowls.
No, and then when you think about, you hear the story about Andy Reid getting hired and how he was really close to going to Arizona, and the Chiefs didn't actually let him get out of the building. That may have, that's a turning point, because you don't know which direction you go after Andy Reid. Like, you've already kind of ran into let's be honest, you guys had really good offense with Trent Green, Priest Holmes, Larry Johnson, those guys. You couldn't quite figure it out defensively. You couldn't find the coach to bring in the culture. Whereas Andy still had success in Philadelphia. I hope, and I think most football fans realize the success that Andy had when he was in Philadelphia. He still got to a Super Bowl, didn't win one, but he still ran that division. Likes of Donovan McNabb, Michael Vick, Jeremy Maclin, Deshaun Jackson, all those guys. So this guy's been through, a lot. I don't know, and I can't speak for Chiefs fans, but when you guys got him, I don't think anybody could envision what you guys have been going through the last decade that he's been on the sideline. So to think about what he had, Alex Smith, kind of that transition period to, I'm going to be 100% honest with you guys, both of you guys, when draft night happened, I thought you guys were drafting Deshaun Watson.
I did.
Not in my mind did I think you guys were going to take Patrick Mahomes, and now look. So,
it was half and half for me. Like, I started coming around to Patrick Mahomes because, of course, we see Deshaun Watson. He went to 2 straight national championships the year before. He got this close, and then finally he beats Nick Saban. So everybody's like, Deshaun Watson. And I was like that coming out that national championship game. I was like, yeah, I want Deshaun Watson. But then I started seeing these clips of this kid from Texas Tech throwing the football, and I'm like, hold on, we might need this guy. He's got an arm. Like, we got Tyreek Hill, we got Travis Kelce. We might need somebody who's a little bit more of a gunslinger, because the thing about it is we needed somebody who can go beyond the X's and O's of Andy Reid. And that's what Mahomes was. He's beyond the X's and O's. When everything's not working, guys are locked down, Mahomes is like, fine, I'll put it on my back and I'll do it myself and I'll improvise and I'll do something. And that's what he did. Took the league by storm by doing that. But then you showed that he had IQ too. He had good football IQ. And that's that was a perfect marriage between him and Andy Reid, was that he brought that out. Because we forget, Andy Reid had success, but also there was a knock on Andy Reid that, he's a great coach. He just can't get over the hump. His time, his clock management, he calls the wrong plays at this time. Like, it was always a knock on Andy Reid. But now this perfect marriage has come together, and now they're one of the better quarterback coach duels of all time. So
and I'm draft night, I was pissed off. We get Patrick Mahomes. I'm like, man, Texas Tech quarterbacks never pan out, right? Like, they're always slinging it around, putting up numbers. I see Deshaun out here winning natties, just kind of leading big time program and all that. And it shows it's how hard it is to evaluate quarterbacks, right? Like,
it is
really a luck of the draw. It's the situation. It's the marriage, as you said. So, I'm glad I was wrong, because I was pissed off. Drafting, I'm like, Patrick Mahomes, come on now, like, we're doing it again.
If you hear if you go back and listen to the national media, when he got drafted, they was like, I don't like this dude. He's the Texas Tech guy. He throws it, the air raid system. That never translates to the NFL. Everybody hated the trade up. Oh, you still got Alex Smith. Why are you getting a quarterback? And then one guy said, you talking about footwork. He has no footwork. It was just like, it was all bad. But I think Andy, like I said, Andy and him were just a good marriage. And I think Andy brought the best out of him, and Patrick brings the best out of Andy. And here we are, looking at that three-peat.
Yeah, and I think on previous episodes that we've talked about, we've always talked about ownership, GM, head coach, quarterback. Obviously the Chiefs have those in their ownership group: GM, head coach, now Mahomes. So it's crazy how that does work, but you have to have all that to have that culture in place. Andy's obviously a player's coach, but the players also know, what they're supposed to do in situations. Like, yes, there's a right time to do the fun, trick stuff and all this other stuff. But when it's time to lock in and do your assignments, Andy's still a pretty competitive guy. You know, just listening to him talk during his press conferences, but then you hear all the guys and the respect that they have for Andy. Those guys definitely go to battle for him. And I think you've seen that. So then we kind of transition over to last year was supposed to be a down year for the Chiefs, right? Well, I think it's kind of even the same this year. The offense just doesn't have that. The offense doesn't have that. It's been the defense. But over the course of the playoffs, you're kind of starting to see that offense click. What do you think, or maybe when do you think that started to click and we're starting to kind of see the Chiefs offense of old kind of come into play?
Well, to mirror off of last year was just more so a talent situation. They rolled the dice on Kadarius Toney. That's really what it was. They thought Kadarius Toney was going to be a number one wide receiver because he showed some flashes. He a big punt return in the Super Bowl against the Eagles, and everybody's like, so we come into this season and we forget that the first training camp, not a play, but he just stepped on the field and got hurt and was out for the rest of the training camp, because that's the knock on Kadarius Toney. He couldn't stay healthy. So mind you, he didn't have no preseason. He had nothing. So then Travis Kelce gets hurt. So then now they're saying, oh, well, Kadarius Toney's going to play. No training camp, no nothing. And it showed in that game against Detroit because he dropped like every pass. He's the reason why we lost that game. It wasn't nothing that Detroit did. The pass that he dropped and it bounced off his hand and went to Brian Branch's hand for the pick six. That's what lost us the game. Because if he bats every ball down on purpose, we still win the game.
Yeah.
And then all last year was just about dropping MVS, dropping every pass, name the man coming his way. Like but then in the playoffs, he's Randy Moss. Like he catches everything. And then Travis, it was just more so. I think they was just like he was hurt coming off the leg and then the ankle. They was just trying to get him to the playoffs. Just get him to the playoffs. That last week of rest, that did wonders because you saw in the playoffs he did good in Buffalo. The first half against Baltimore, he was vintage Travis Kelce. Then you go fast forward this year. Now we getting second year. Oh, and Rashee Rice coming along in the second half too. Then we come into this year. We get Rashee Rice. He's a second year. He knows the offense now. We're getting Hollywood Brown. And I know there's a lot of people knocking Hollywood Brown, but Hollywood is he's a very good wide receiver. He can get open. He can get separation. And that's what we was banging on. And we got him at a minimum, like $7 million. Like, that was a steal. So we're getting him. We get Xavier Worthy in the first round. So the speed is coming back. Pacheco's coming back healthy. And then it was just like they started dropping like flies. Like Hollywood gets hurt in preseason. Then Pacheco gets hurt in the Cincinnati game. Then the Chargers game where Patrick Mahomes, I don't know what he was trying to tackle, and he takes out Rashee Rice. So now we're down to Travis Kelce and Xavier Worthy. And you know how Andy Reid feels about rookies. Yep. He likes to develop him, but now we got to speed his stuff up. Like, hey, you got to learn the playbook more now. So now he's got to speed up, and it was a little month where Xavier Worthy was having some issues. Then I think like November came along, he started coming along. And then once we wrapped up the division in that Pittsburgh game, that was the best thing that ever happened to us. I think getting Hollywood Brown back. You see it. You see that our defenses have to play us differently now, because now we got two guys who got speed. Because Hollywood got speed, Xavier Worthy has speed, Travis Kelce looks healthy, he looks vibrant. You know what I'm saying? Even though he didn't have a great game last week, the week before in the Texans game, which I don't know what the Texans were thinking. You might want to guard 87. He's wide open over here. Like, okay, you're taking out our receivers, but 87 is still 87 when he needs to be. So I just think the guys are getting healthy at the right time. Pacheco hasn't really looked the same. I think Kareem Hunt's more of the lead back right now. I just think that injury has taken a toll on Pacheco. I think he'll be better next year, though. But I just think we're getting healthy at the right time. And then Joe Thuney going to left tackle. That's the old
that dude's just an all-around. You can't say enough about this guy.
Yeah, Joe Thuney going to left tackle was the ultimate thing. That made Pat more comfortable in the pocket, and they're able to run their offense. Their full offense now. It's not just, they got to do certain stuff. Like, he's manned that left side and made it, what we need it to be. So that's pretty much why the offense looks way better in the playoffs.
Yeah, I agree with the health, but I also think we live in an era where people fall in love with stats so much.
Of course.
If you watch Chiefs football, you realize that like they just do what it takes to win, and it's not just offensively, right? It's all three facets, three facets of the game. Phases, whatever, faucets, facets, phrases, all three levels, whatever, right? But and that's really why I think they're always. Some people will blame the refs. Some people will blame. I mean, you do what you want, right? But if you just watch the Chiefs, it's a new person making a play each week, right?
Yeah.
Like special teams, defense, off. I mean, even last week, Juju had that couple big catches for 60 yards. I guarantee he was 9th, 10th, 11th on that scattering report, right? Don't worry about him. Leo Chanel blocking kicks. We have the punt returner and kick returner just having absolute dynamite returns, right? So I think people they fall so in love with stats and how you look that they don't realize that Chiefs are just doing whatever it takes at whatever level, whatever phase of the game to make sure they win. Getting healthy definitely helps, but if people could just quit looking at final stat lines or stats or something and realize that as long as you're winning and you have a full complete team, I could care less what your stats are, right? Like 500 yards and 6 touchdowns and a loss. Give me $190, 2 touchdowns and a turnover and a win all day. So I agree with the health, but it's just the Chiefs are a championship locker room, right? Every person on that active roster thinks that it can be their time to go out and make a game-changing play, make a big stop, big turnover, big return, whatever. So I think that's what it is. It's just more of a complete team. Early Patty era, right? It was that offense. We are coming out throwing for 500 yards, blowing everyone up. But now we have a dominant special teams. We have a dominant defense, and Andy and Pat can do just enough to keep us in games and then win the game at the end. So I don't know. It's not always pretty, but I'll take ugly wins every day of the week and twice on Sundays.
And we look real quick at the defense because we knew the defense was good, how they were able to get better, and by a lot. Like, it's not really close, just based on, we talk when we were doing basically every week before we'd preview the Chiefs game upcoming. We always talked about Spags and his blitz. You never know when it's going to come, right? He picks the absolute perfect time to do it. Everyone knows it's that time, and they still can't do anything about that. You try to have your hot routes. You're not getting the ball off quick enough. So I think, and that's what intrigues me about this Super Bowl and the storyline with this is the defense in Saquon. Like, we know what Saquon is, right? He's Saquon. What do you guys think? What do you think that, is it one of those where let Saquon get his and don't let anyone, or how do you guys, what are you guys thinking on your game plan going into this?
Well, that's easy for me. I'm a send the house at Jalen and make him beat me under pressure. If he does that, cool. His numbers struggle against pressure. He has the weapons and everything, but if you take away his first read, shit breaks down real quick for him. I'm absolutely not letting Saquon beat us.
No.
If Jalen Hurts goes out there and balls out against pressure and makes great play after great play, cool, they earned it. But Saquon ain't winning this shit. Nah, not a chance.
No, you can't let him get $150 and 2 touchdowns.
Nah.
Like, that happens, and we're in the fourth quarter, and Pat's gonna have to make something happen over it. That's the bottom line. But because think about it like this, and we could take it to the Washington game. I know everybody sees the 55 points, but let's not discount that there was like 4 fumbles on there that killed it. And it wasn't Jaden Daniels' fault. It was everybody else around him who folded. Dami Brown fumbled, the Kenny McIntosh fumble, the Austin Eckler fumble. We forget in the fourth quarter it was 30-23 in the fourth.
It was still a game.
It was still a game, and they were marching down the field. Zach Ertz was getting everything he wanted in the middle of the field. So what do you think Travis Kelce's gonna do? So, but I think the game plan is Spags is gonna be like, hey, we can't let Saquon get a big one. He's going to get his, but we can't let him hit that 50, 60-yard one. That's what gets them momentum. That's what gets them charged up. And then you got to worry about that. Plus, Jalen Hurts, he can pull and run himself. It's just like you got to have a good spy. The defensive line's got to not break their containment in the gaps. They got to stay in contain and not try to head hunt after Jalen Hurts, because they can run right past him and leave the middle of the field wide open, and he can run for 20, 30 yards. So it's all about discipline on the defensive line and the linebackers. Chris Jones, and the one thing to look at is their offensive line, their centers. They're both hurt. Landon Dickerson was hurt with an ankle injury, and Juergens has got a back injury. That's not something you want to have when you got Chris Jones in front of you, or Charles Omenihu. So I think it's going to be a lot of twists and stunts going after that middle and trying to go after Jalen Hurts. And Jalen Hurts, and what Austin said, you take his first read away, he holds the ball a lot. That's why he tends to get sacked a lot, because he just sits and holds and holds and holds, and it's like, run, man, what are you doing? And he's just sitting there waiting for somebody to get open, and that tends to get sacks and fumbles. Yep. That's what happened in the other Super Bowl. He in the second half, Nick Bolton hit him and he got the fumble, and that changed the tide of the game right there. And if you're Jalen Hurts, you can't have that, because that could be bad for you.
No, and I think on the flip side of this, if you do give him time, and Trent McDuffie, obviously all-pro. He's really good at what he does, but I think that second corner still iffy. The second and third corner still kind of iffy. So you still have to watch for Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown, Dallas Goedert as well. And then another one that, and I don't know if he's going to be cleared or not, because I know he was in concussion protocol, was Kenneth Gainwell, kind of the receiving back, matching him up with the linebackers and try to get him open in space. I don't have as much faith, obviously, in the coaching staff for Philadelphia as I do
I'm not a
big
Sirianni fan either.
Nah.
Yeah, so it's like all these things the Eagles could possibly do, and they still could.
Yeah.
I just don't have the faith that they're going to scheme it up to where, you get your running backs out against those linebackers and in the coverage, open space, the flat routes. Again, I think there is going to be a ton of opportunities for those strip sacks, because like you said, he does hang on to the football.
Mm-hmm.
He kind of hesitates when he takes off, unless it's actually like a QB blast or QB draw type situation where he knows where he's going, he can find that time. But if you get him in a scramble drill, in a scramble mode, he kind of hesitates, and that gives you a chance to, get those hits on him. I think the more hits he takes, the more happy feet he's going to get and be more likely to take off when he doesn't need to. And then if you're sitting behind the sticks the whole game, or for a good chunk of your drive, that kind of takes Saquon out of the equation, because second 15, second 18, yeah, you could run, but then you're going to set yourself up possibly for third and long. So let's talk about, it's almost kind of the similar storyline of the first Super Bowl, where the Chiefs haven't faced a defensive line like this before, right? And they kind of shut that down really quick last Super Bowl. But these guys are a couple years older now. Jalen Carter, those guys, I think their defense is a little quicker, they have speed. You had mentioned earlier about keeping the field wide open, and Zach Ertz was kind of able to do what he wanted. Well, Travis 87 is going to be there, right? So is there any concerns that their D-line maybe gets to Patrick early and often, or do you think that they have a plan in place for maybe some hot routes and getting those other guys like Worthy and Hollywood Brown on those quick game?
Well, at first my concern was where Jalen Carter was going to line up. If he was lining up on Caliendo, boy, geez. Yeah, he's lining up Caliendo, I don't know, but he's lining up. They said he does most of his damage from the right side, which means he'll be over Trey. So Trey's going to have to be on his P's and Q's. Creed Humphrey's going to have to be on his P's and Q's too, because it's not just him; it's Milton too. They got guys. He's pretty good too when he rushes the passer. And then you got Sweat on the outside. I don't know if Brandon Graham is going to play. If he does, he'd probably be like third down situational type dude, because he's coming off a bicep injury. But that defensive line is no joke. Jalen Carter is the next Chris Jones, Aaron Donald type pass rusher from the defensive line. Like, that kid's going to be the best in a couple of years. So he's definitely the guy you got to worry about. But if we can contain him, I think that if we can run our offense like we need to run our offense, I think that we'll be fine. If we can get these wide receivers on linebackers and safeties, I think we'll be fine. I think we can move this offense up and down the field like we've been doing in the playoffs. So,
yeah, I think you're going to see. Again, I think this goes to kind of what you said, Corey. I trust Andy, right? I think what you're going to see a lot more of is a few more end arounds, a little bit stuff kind of side to side to get that D-line kind of just going, running, tire them out a little bit. You're going to see the pocket move a lot, some kind of those naked bootleg type deals. just to prevent that D-line from kind of just getting in rhythm, not having to run, right? Like make them go sideline to sideline. We'll go one play all the way to the left. Next one will come all the way to the right. Like just get them, move them, get them uncomfortable. So I trust Andy has a game plan. As much as I like the interior of our line, you still don't want to just leave him on an island, right? You want to help him out as much as you can. I trust Trey, I trust Creed, but at the end of the day, you're not wrong. Jalen Carter he's a game wrecker. Honestly, we've seen it with Chris Jones, and this guy's no different. But I trust Andy, right? I trust the game plan. It's just a matter of executing. Like, look, this is two really good teams, right? Like, we could go back and forth and make a really good case for why both teams could just blow it out, right? So, but I trust Andy. I think the game plan will be there, and we're battle tested enough to where I believe the execution will be pretty good too.
And their corners are really good too. Quinyon Mitchell is probably a defensive rookie of the year candidate. That kid is.
Absolutely.
We all know how big play Slay. He's pretty good himself too. Mm-hmm. He's not as what he used to be, but he's a good number 2 corner. And what's his name?
You got Mitchell and DeJean.
Cooper DeJean, he's really good too. Now, ever since they moved him to the nickel, he's been really good. Blankenship is not bad, and Charlie Garner Johnson is not bad either. Even though I can't stand him, he always talk trash.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is the Chiefs' run game is kind of iffy here and there, but I think what people don't realize is screens are kind of an extension of the run game, and we know Andy's one of the better ones when it comes to screen designs, whether it's getting Xavier Worthy on even a jet sweep. Just getting those guys moving side to side. Do we think the Chiefs can get the run game going? Or, I mean, we see them kind of, we think they're going to run and then they don't, but they do in a way of as far as like extending it out to like the screens, the quick passes. And then it seems like towards the end of the game when they do need that run game, Kareem Hunt's been that guy to kind of close it out.
Yeah. I think that they'll stick to the game plan. They usually do Pacheco in the first half, get him going. And then once he doesn't really get nothing going, then they'll be like, all right, Hunt, go close it out. Because like I said, Pacheco just hasn't been the same since he's came off that injury. He's just not cutting the same, he doesn't have that same explosiveness. So hopefully he'll get better next year. But, maybe these 2 weeks being off, maybe that did him some good. But yeah, I think Kareem Hunt is our lead guy, and I would like them to use some IGP Ryan more in the passing game too.
Saying that all year.
I think he's our Jared McKinnon type. Like he's just, you saw he closed out the game for us against Buffalo. And I would like to see more of that. I think that would be a hidden gem in this game if some IGP Ryan can get going in the passing game for sure.
Yeah, and I don't know what the breakdown is previously, but I do know Andy and Patty record-wise and win-wise have kind of dominated Vic Fangio's defenses. I don't know if that was being able to develop the run game or just we do what we do, but they've had nothing but success against Fangio's defenses.
Yeah.
I think most of the time is because they do develop a little bit of a run game. They're able to, because Vic usually kind of stays in his, kind of mellow defenses, and sometimes they'll send a blitz off of it, but they kind of line up and just play like they're going to beat you one-on-one. And truthfully, that's just what Pat and Andy, like that's what they want you to do because they know how to beat you in those scenarios. So I actually think, like if I had to make a bold prediction, I think we run for 150 yards as a team. And I think if we do that, that's an easy victory for the Chiefs, right? Like you're keeping them off the field. You get 150 rush yards, your offense is in rhythm across the board at that point. So that's kind of what I see happening. I think we do try to run the ball, right? But we don't really have much success a lot of times.
And last week we saw it with Mahomes. He was an extension of the running game.
Yeah,
they were doing RPOs. They haven't done RPO all season.
No,
and they just all of a sudden they start doing RPOs and him keeping the ball and running. So that's another underrated thing. I still don't understand how teams underrate him as a runner, but they still do to this day. It's just like, oh, he's not going to run. And then he breaks off for like 20, 30 yards.
That's what my brother always says every game. He's like, Patrick's going to use his legs in crucial moments, and like teams aren't going to be ready for it for some reason. And it's almost weekly, crucial time or big time play, and it's Patty with his legs. So yeah, that's spot on.
Yeah, and I think even the Bills players said that they saw like 20 plays that they hadn't even saw, like they weren't even on tape. They were like, we had no idea that was about to happen because we just didn't see it in any of the film that we studied. So I think I do think that is an underrated part of the game is Patrick's ability to scramble. You don't think he's going to be able to get, a couple of yards, and here he is taking off for 15, 20, 25 yards. And you're like, well, where the hell did that come from? Like, what? So it's like, you would like to think that teams would still game plan for at least that part of, hey, if we keep him in the pocket X amount of time for this X amount of time, look for him. Coverage is doing what they're supposed to do. But if you all have your back to him and he can just take off, he's going to beat a D tackle to the edge. I mean, he's shown that much. Yeah. So I still think that's still a little bit of an X factor for me, is when you need that crucial stop as an Eagle, or with the Eagles, you got to stop him first. Like, it's stop 15. Don't let him, 1, extend. 2, don't let him extend it to where he's going to take off and run. And 3, come on, like, don't let him get more than he needs to. Like,
and don't leave Travis wide open on these, right? Like the Texans did. Like, stop Mahomes scrambling and don't leave 87, and you probably have a really good chance long term. That's really how we've made it this far, right? Like Patrick with his legs, and I guess last week Travis didn't really blow up that much, but like
it was more Xavier Worthy and Juju and just everybody else around him. Hollywood made some plays. Like, it was more so that it goes back to what you're saying, Austin, that every game is different. You know what I'm saying? Somebody asked me one time this year, what's the Chiefs' identity? And I'm like, adaptability. They adapt to their opponent. Absolutely. That's what it is. They adapt to their opponent. Oh, we got to do a shootout. All right, guys, we got to score 28. We got to score 30 today. Oh, man, that's a tough one, man. We got to, all right, just man the ship. Don't turn the football over. Hey, defense, I need y'all to get us one. Like, oh, we need to block a field goal? Fine. We scouted this guy like 2 weeks ago, and he likes to kick it this way. So let's just block it. Like, they adapt to who they playing, and that's their identity.
Yeah, and they've gotten to the point where, and you see it happen against the Chiefs a lot. Like Chiefs are really good at not beating themselves.
Yeah.
We're not going to give you a 20-yard field. We're not going to hand you anything. We have some stupid penalties. Don't get me wrong, right? Like, they're not perfect, but like, we just see these other teams kind of melt, get away from who they are down the stretch because they're playing the Chiefs. It's a close game. We're kind of tightening up, and the Chiefs are like, you already lost if that's your mindset, homie. Like, you're getting out of what you're doing, and we see it all the time against the Chiefs, right? Like the Ravens, okay, run Derrick Henry more than 6 times in a game or something, right? Or run Lamar even more. Or the Bills, they came out that one drive, pounded it down our throat in the second half, and then never did it again.
No,
at all. So I think that's also the Chiefs, is like, we're not going to beat ourselves, right? We're going to wait till you kind of mess up, till you crack the door open, and then us being who we are, right? Like, we've been in this year after year after year, game after game. Like, thanks for giving it to us. Thanks for cracking that door open. We're going to take advantage of it like you didn't. So, yeah, it's a bunch of little things, and I like that adaptability, right? Do what needs to be done against that set opponent that day. And I think that's one of the best things you could say about a team.
Yeah.
So I sat here doing a podcast this time last year, begging Kyle Shanahan to just run the football. Like, don't get too cute. Don't do anything. You're not, just run the football. Use Christian McCaffrey. Play smart. I think the thing that the teams get into with the Chiefs is they think they need to get into a shootout when you don't have to. In reality, just play your game, right? Just like what you guys are saying is the Chiefs just wait for you to beat yourself, which you look back, the 49ers, they beat themselves. They shouldn't have went for it, or they shouldn't have went for the field goal. They should have just went for it because you weren't going to win the game. Mm-mm. They went away from using Christian McCaffrey in the run game. I don't, and this is where I don't trust the Eagles coaching staff of, don't get away from the run game. Even if Saquon's sitting there 10 carries for like 27 yards, for example, you still got to keep using them. Either that, or you got to get Jalen Hurts to run the football. Like, they have to continue to run the football and play their style. The minute that they get away from doing this, and they get away from maybe using Saquon, where you go 2 or 3 possessions and he only gets 2, maybe 3 carries, it's over. You have no chance, right?
You're already in your head. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that's what it is, right? Teams, they think that the coach wants to be that guy that has the perfect game plan. Hey, we were able to beat the Chiefs at their own game. You didn't. You already lost if you go in with that mindset. Give me an X factor of, I know you guys don't want to do this, but the Eagles win if they
have success on first and second down with Saquon. There's in 2nd and 5, 3rd and 2. They can definitely win that game because that means they're having short fields, and then the tush push comes into play and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So and they're the only ones that can really run that move. Like it's unstoppable when they do it. So they had, like I said, they had to have short field. They can't be 2nd and 15, 3rd and 20 like that. You can't do that. You'll lose bad. And they have a lot of those.
At that point,
yeah,
you guys be having to beat in the first half. You're like, what's up?
Yeah. So yeah, they gotta have short downs. Like I said, win in 1st and 2nd and get into short yardage and 3rd down. And on offense, same difference. On offense, same difference. We gotta convert 3rd down conversion and in the red zone. That's really where it's crucial for us in the red zone. I love Harrison Buckner. I don't want to see Harrison Buckner only unless we kicking an extra point. That's it. I don't want to see 3. I want to see 7. You got to score 7. We got to apply pressure and make them do something stupid. Make them chase points. That's what we got to make them do. And that means they got to throw the football. And look, Jalen Hurts, he could throw. I'm not trying to take nothing away from him as a quarterback. I think he's a very good quarterback. But he's better when they're running the football. And we can contain Saquon, like you said, and minimize him. If Saquon has, 15 carries and 80 yards, that is a successful day.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. You sign up for that any time of the week. You can get that.
Yep. No, I agree. I think I'm going to go with the cliche one, but Corey, you've known me my entire life, obviously, so you probably won't be surprised. But I think the Eagles win if they just dominate the trenches, right? I think that's where the difference on paper really lies right now. Eagles are supposed to have one of the best offensive lines. I know they're a little banged up, so that could play a little bit into it. But if the Eagles' defensive line is able to cause havoc, get us into some long 2nd, 3rd downs, that's trouble. And then if their offensive line is just moving our defensive line, that obviously isn't good. So I think the Eagles win if they just dominate the trenches, right? Like, to me, that's always where games are won or lost or really swung. So I know it's kind of cliche, but I think that's really where the difference is in this game.
You're right.
Yeah, and you had mentioned earlier, Cris, about point chasing. I think Buffalo had started doing that a little too early last week. There was a point when we were watching the game, and I was like, you absolutely don't go for 2 right here. Like, just take it and go. You have momentum. Your defense is actually figuring it out, and they're playing really well. Then you absolutely just blow that 2-point conversion the first go around. So now you're setting yourself back. Then you do it again later in the game. So that's 4 points right there. You miss a field goal. So now it adds up. And then you look at the final score and you're like, that's why you don't need to point chase. At some point you do. Yeah, you do. Not early. Like, believe in your defense a little bit. Give yourself a chance. Right. And I think that's where teams, again, they panic. Just make panic decisions, and it costs them. I think the difference with the Eagles and the Bills, and this isn't a knock on Josh Allen because he's a great quarterback. He's just not the one to do the tush push with, right? Yeah. So this is going to be a different beast. This is going to be a little bit of a different beast that the Chiefs would see when it comes to the tush push. And these guys will straight do it 3 straight times from the 1-yard line if they have to.
They will.
This is that's the matchup I'm looking for the most, is on those short yardage, because Chris Jones absolutely just destroyed the interior part of that Bills offensive line. Mm-hmm. Not necessarily the case, but then you made a note earlier. They're a little beat up themselves in the position that matters right there in the tush push. The center's got to get that good push. Whereas if Chris Jones can knock him back and he is that type of player. He can do that. That's kind of one of the main kind of things I'm looking for as far as that goes. Give me something that maybe concerns you guys as Chiefs fans, whether that's offense, defense, special teams. What is the one thing you're going to look for the most that maybe concerns you a little bit heading into this game this weekend?
Our safeties on tight ends. Dallas Goedert.
That's right. Where I was talking to my buddy over the weekend, I was like, we can chalk Dallas Goedert up for 100 yards and a tutty already. Like,
we're going to put your money on him right now.
Yes,
whatever
sir.
His receiving yards is, take the over.
Over, yeah.
Tight ends kick our ass every single time. I don't know what it is. Justin Reed, Shamar Connor is bad in coverage. I hate when I see him in coverage. I love Shamar Connor. I think he's a good in the box safety. But when it comes to coverage, he cannot cover. And then our linebackers, I don't know what's going on with Tranquil. I don't know if he put on too much weight this year, but he looks slower this year. He doesn't look like the guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't look like the guy that was last year. Last year he was flying around. This year, I don't know. He just doesn't.
He got paid finally, and he was able to eat good.
I guess so, because he's a step slower. So
yeah,
that the middle of the field concerns me. That's what concerns me. You get a Devontae Smith in the middle of the field. You get Dallas Goedert, maybe an AJ Brown too. Oof. Like that middle of the field scares me. But on the outside, I think we're cool because I, of course, I love Trent, but I also love Jalen Watson. Jalen Watson coming back is a godsend. Like when he was gone, we had to try out Joshua Williams and Najee Johnson. It was food. Every time they saw them dudes out there, oh, where's 2? Oh, where's 13? Let's go after them.
Yeah.
So, but when you got 35 and 22 out there, I think we do better on that. And then when you kick Trent in the slot, that's even better. So, but yeah, the middle of the field is what's scary.
Yeah, mine kind of goes to that. I was going to say tackling, which really in the middle of the field is where we're bad at tackling, right? Like we get AJ Brown on a slant, tackle him. We get Goddard, Saquon over the middle or something, like tackle them. Limit the yards after catch. Like it'd be cooler if you could just be in the right position to prevent the catch, but I'm not going to ask that much from, Bolton. Like no, like at this point we know you're not a pass coverage guy at this point in your career, right? Like, you are what you are.
Yeah.
I kind of wish Leo Chanel was better in coverage because he's the guy who has the size and speed to kind of eliminate tight ends, but he might be one of the worst people in coverage. So I think everything he said, I was going to say tackling. So it kind of comes to our defense, right? Like don't leave the middle of the field wide open. If they happen to get to the middle of the field, just limit their yards after they catch it. AJ Brown can take a 1-yard slant 80 yards in the blink of an eye. Smith can do the same. I mean, we know what Saquon can do, right? If you're not bringing your tackling hat, Saquon ain't going to have that 15 for 80 stat line. Like, it's just not going to happen. So just clean up the tackling. Ideally, we do cover the middle of the field, but that's asking a lot at this point. So
I agree.
Yeah, and I think not too long ago, I would have said one thing that would concern me about the Chiefs is their offensive line. But again, moving Joe out to left tackle, people can say what they want about Taylor. Taylor's looked pretty good in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Look, he blocks well, right? He just holds a lot and sometimes gets a little quick off his jump. But if he doesn't hold or jump too early, like he blocks well.
Yeah, and I think that's opened up the offense a lot more. One, I mean, you've gotten healthy, so you're able to put your receivers where they're supposed to be, right? Getting Hollywood Brown back, that kind of put everybody back where they're supposed to be. Now you're not asking Worthy to do certain things that he was doing at the beginning of the season that you could absolutely tell he was not comfortable doing. I'm sure it was frustrating. I know there was a couple of games we'd watch, he'd be wide open, but he would be out of bounds making the catch just because the awareness wasn't quite there.
It wasn't all on him. Sometimes, Pat.
Oh, no, it wasn't all on him.
A little too far.
Yeah, absolutely. So you could just tell some of those, there were bad drops in there too, just because he was trying to get a little too quick. He settled in rather nicely.
He did.
Just another gift from the Bills, right? Like the Bills just like, hey,
Buffalo.
We're gonna go ahead and help you guys out. And then he, of course, just has a massive game against the Bills. So good for him. He deserves it. Just watching the growth from week 1 to the postseason to now, and what he's been able to do. The growth of him's just been tremendous. We've watched him plenty of times at Texas as well, just Big 12 football, and we watched a lot of that. So seeing him and just the growth and maturity. I can only imagine what this team's going to look like next year when Rice is back, and they get that. So, not a concern of mine anymore. The offensive line for the Chiefs has held up pretty well. I don't really see that being a huge issue.
Concern if they think to put Jalen Carter over Caliendo.
And that's what we're like. Are they?
Do you counter that? Do you put Tooney back at left guard if that gets bad, and then just trust Humphreys?
If Jalen Carter is wrecking the game, then I could see Andy saying, "All right, DJ Humphreys, I need you out there left tackle, and I need you."
Right, you don't got to be an all pro, but kind of just do enough, please.
Yeah,
those are the slight adjustments. Like those are the things that Tony Romo and Jim Nantz kept talking about last week with the Bills. Hey, every time he sneaks, he's going this side. All it takes is one time to not go that side and go the other side. They're all covered right there.
Well, go
to this side.
Did you hear the Najee Johnson quote?
I didn't.
He said that we watched 100% of Josh Allen's QB sneaks, and 100% of the time he went left. So we scouted it, and we just blew it up left. He's like, if they would have ever went right, the dude wouldn't have even been touched because we were blowing it up. And that's what you're talking about, right? You have to self-scout is, I think, what he ended that. You have to self-scout to break tendencies sometimes. So
but
that's
when you
like
do it
right
so many
on the head.
times and it works, it's like it's hard to be like.
And you're like, what's going to change this time? Why won't it work this time?
Because they looking also at Philly, it's 100% is going to work. The tush push always works, so they figure I got Josh Allen, it's going to work. The problem, is, the difference is that Jalen Hurts is like 6 foot, maybe 5'11", and he doesn't go up. He goes under the line, so it's hard to get him.
Yeah, and Josh takes a step back too.
Yeah,
like
and
it's not
you have
immediately
offensive
in.
linemen pushing him. You can't have a running back pushing Josh Allen. Josh Allen is 6'6", 275 pounds. Like that ain't gonna do nothing.
He's not an easy man to push. No, if I did have one concern, I do agree with the secondary part. The thing that counters that, though, is I think the Chiefs' pressure can get to Jalen Hurts. If they can't get the run game going, I don't think this is going to be a very good game. Because, again, if you're getting pressure on the quarterback and he's, again, is no knock on him because, like you said, he can throw the football and he throws it rather well if he gets the time. It's just the Chiefs, that defensive line, man, talk about just those are dogs right there, dude. Like, you just watch them all year. Just Chris Jones and what he's meant to that team and being able to mentor guys like George Karlaftis,
my guy,
Felix, and Charles Menahu coming back and doing some of that stuff. I think this defense can win this game for the Chiefs. And I think, again, that helps your offense knowing that, we don't have to do too much. But then the flip side of that is the Chiefs defense knows that 15 can go out there and win the game for them. How many times has he done that for him this season? Or in his career. This season, it was kind of reversed where the defense and special teams were helping out the offense. So we've come to, let's get the predictions in. Cris, you're our guest. Let's go ahead and let's hear what your thoughts are and who's going to win this game.
I'm not going to lie. This is a difficult game to measure because
it is.
It's very difficult because you can't deny the Eagles. They have talent. And if we're doing roster for roster and, talent-wise, they might have a little bit more talent than the Chiefs right now, like offensively and defensively. But it doesn't just come down to talent. It comes down to coaching and the quarterback. And I just think that we have the overall advantage at that position. So I'm going to have the Chiefs winning. I'm going to go with a score of 31-24.
Sweet. Austin?
Yeah, no, I agree. But kind of just to counter off of that, right? Like, I know we're saying that the Eagles on paper look better than the Chiefs, but that's been a lot of matchups this year, right? Like on paper, Bills probably look a little better than the Chiefs, but we have Andy and we have Pat and Spags. Like, you know me, I'm gonna give my defense love. 100 days.
Most definitely.
So like I'm one. I believe in Spags. My boy George, I called him having a 4-sack game against the Texans. He only had 3, so he let me down. But I think George is going to have another big game this week. I'll go a little bit higher, so he aims a little bit higher. But I think he's going to have a 5-sack game. He's just going to wreck shop, right? Like
if George Karlaftis has 5 sacks, we blew out.
That's what I'm saying. No, I think this game's going to go kind of just how your typical Chiefs game has gone the last few years. It's going to be tight. It's going to be tight. Spags he's going to be mild throughout the game, but late when we have to have it, like we did against the Bills, shit's just going to go wide. That ball's going to be snapped, and even Chiefs fans at some point are like, did we just send 42 players on that blitz? Because like shit's just wild. That's what it's going to happen that way. It'll be close. Spags will dial it up. Our predictions were close. I have Chiefs 31-28 is what I was thinking. One way, it's either a walk-off field goal or we're going to be down by that Teddy late, and obviously Patty's going to come through, get us to that 31-28. But I think just like the last Super Bowl, if fans can just look beyond their crying for the officiating and all that, like just enjoy a great game, because I think we're going to get another one just like it was last time, like just 2 great teams battling it out. And like I just hope fans can enjoy it and just not cry about every little thing they see. So I'm just happy to have a good game. That's really what I want. Obviously want the three-peat, but also as just an overall football fan, like let's just get a good game going.
Yeah, I'm not going to poo on your guys' parade or anything, but I think Saquon helps this team, and I think he gets them over the hump this year.
What a Bronco.
I do. I also just want to see a good Super Bowl, really. But I do think Saquon's the difference maker here. The momentum he's been able to bring to that team and that, that city and what they've been able to do. I think at the end of the day, it does come down to coaching. And even as a Broncos fan, I respect what Andy and especially Spags and what he's been able to do, taking over a defense a few years ago that wasn't very good, and what he's been able to do. I think that dude deserves to be a head coach. I think he deserves to be able to run his own team.
Nope.
And, but at the end of the day, I think Saquon gets it done. He helps him out. I do think it's going to be a little bit lower scoring game than what you guys had. I had 24-21 Eagles.
Okay.
I do have it as an overtime game just to make it fun.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised, right? Like, outside of Chiefs Kingdom, like, nobody wants to see a three-peat, right? Like, I get it. Haters going to hate.
Hey, and I think it would be cool. But at the same time, no, it really wouldn't.
Look, man, I remember the Patriots days, right? Like, I didn't want to see them win shit. So, like,
but they actually cheated. Like, they
had a murderer on the team. Like,
yeah, like
we ain't even close.
I'm tired of these fans having this revisionist history talking about, I prefer the Patriots. Do you not remember the Patriots?
Nah,
their whole legacy was built off of a bad call, the tuck rule. Like, what are we talking about?
Practices and deflating football. Like, come on now.
Man.
Again, if I'm being honest, I do. Again, the Chiefs probably do, just for sake of me wanting. I love Saquon. I've liked Saquon since he's been in the NFL. Really glad he got away from the Giants and what that poor organization's been able to not do with him. So again, perfect ending for Saquon and his good season. Should be the MVP. Obviously, it won't be him. As far as, obviously the quarterbacks get it. But again,
if he had 150-something yards, he better get it.
No, absolutely. And I totally agree with that. But at the end of the day, enjoy the Super Bowl. I mean, it is what it is. Not everybody's going to have their favorite team in it, right? So it's like you guys get to enjoy a pretty cool run that you guys are on right now. And as fans, don't take it for granted because you don't know what's going to happen in, 5, 6, 7, 8 years, right? Like back to what you guys were beforehand, but again, Cris, I want to appreciate and thank you for coming on. This has been fun for us. I know we've been wanting to interact with a lot more Chiefs fans on here, especially with how the season has been going. So for you to come on here and kick it with us for about an hour, talk Super Bowl, talk some Chiefs, and this is what it's all about. And this is what we wanted to do with our podcast when we got it going. Tell everybody where they can find you, your social media, and your podcasts.
You can find me on all social media sites, from Instagram, Facebook, X, or Twitter, whatever you want to call it. I'm on all of them. You can follow me at AH Chief Podcast for my Chiefs podcast. And if you want to follow my other podcast, it's Cris Style and Mall. You can follow us on that one too. Just, hit us up, follow us on it, and subscribe to our YouTube channel too.
Absolutely. And we're going to have to get you on after this for some baseball talk, maybe. Why stop with football? I mean, we talk all sorts of
the Royals, man. We coming.
We Bobby Witt. Let's go. Yeah, let's go. It's just, even the dogs are agreeing with it too. They're like, what's up? So again, I appreciate your time. Yeah, man. It's, the run they were able to do last year and what Bobby Witt meant to this team. Salvador is obviously Big Sal,
of course,
and what he's meant to Kansas City. If there's someone bigger than Travis and Patrick in Kansas City, it's absolutely Salvador Perez and what he's meant to this franchise. So, but to see the baseball team supporting the Chiefs, Bobby Witt at the games, I could just text Patrick Mahomes whenever I want and just kick it with him. So it's like, yeah, man, I'm super excited. I know we're excited about this upcoming season and some of the stuff that they've been able to do. So, yeah, we'll definitely have to chop it up with the Royals this season and see how it goes.
Yeah, man.
Bro, do you have any closing remarks?
Yeah, I got a couple things. It's only fitting that on a sports podcast we hear Kobe and Shaq barking in the background, right? Like, it ain't a sports podcast without Kobe and Shaq. But I also wanted to, I believe our guest is from Las Vegas, right? And I know you're a Chiefs fan. I don't think I said it at all during this episode, so I at least have to get it in here at the end with my patent and just like fuck the Raiders. I think I get one of those in every episode, and I don't think I got that in yet, so I couldn't end it without that.
Of course.
What is it like? What is it like rolling around Vegas in your Chiefs gear and kind of being able to kind of flash it out a little bit?
I get all.
We watched the Chiefs win a Super Bowl in the stadium. Like
I get all the hate. Like I'm always getting told every week, oh, you gonna lose this week. Oh, you gonna lose. I'm picking the other team. Oh, the referees is gonna help y'all again. Like, I get it all. I got tough skin. I'm so used to it now. It's just like whatever.
Yeah,
it's whatever.
No,
because
that's
you wish
that's
you
great.
could trade spots with me. So shut up.
Exactly. Like, hey, what your team hasn't maybe won? They haven't won a playoff game in 20 some years. Like, get away from me. Go.
And it's not just them; it's other teams too. It's just like, man, you're a Jaguar fan. Shut up.
Yes, shut up.
Well, again, we appreciate your time. We are doing another episode tomorrow with the girls from Unhinged and Unplugged podcast. They're going to come on. They're Chiefs fans as well. They live up in New York, so we're going to have them on tomorrow. So, again, make sure you guys find our podcast on Apple, Spotify, and iHeart. Find us on Instagram at Shovick Sports, and we'll talk to you all again tomorrow.
Go Chiefs.